Okay, Mackenzie asks, how does a believer stay with a spouse who is starting to believe cultist teachings such as cursed races, etc.?
Well, 1 Corinthians 7 talks about the fact that you don't know whether or not you may not save that person. Let me read the passage to you. This is out of 1 Corinthians chapter 7, starting in verse 10. Paul says, "Now to the married I command, yet not I but the Lord, a wife is not to depart from her husband, but even if she does depart, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and a husband's not to divorce his wife." And so he's referring to Matthew chapter 19 that we just talked about, as far as the fact that a wife and a husband are supposed to remain married for life. He says, "But to the rest, not I, or I, not the Lord, say." And all he's saying there is that Jesus didn't deal with this, and so he's going to. "But to the rest, I, not the Lord, say, if any brother has a wife who does not believe, and she's willing to live with him, let him not divorce her. And a woman who has a husband who does not believe, if he's willing to live with her, let her not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Otherwise your children will be unclean, but now they're holy. But if the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or a sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to peace. For how do you know, O wife, whether you will save your husband, or how do you know, O husband, whether you will save your wife?" And so the Bible's clear on the fact that you have an influence in your husband's life. Just by living with the guy, you have an influence with him. And the influence goes like this. You have the Holy Spirit dwelling inside of you. You have Christ himself living in your heart. And so every time that guy wakes up next to you in the morning and looks at you, he's looking at somebody that has Jesus inside of them. And so that gets really convicting, you know.
Yeah.
And God uses it in people's lives. And so I understand that that's a scary position that you're in. I wouldn't like it either. It's a scary position that you're in, but of all people, your husband is the one that you want to take to heaven with you. And so it's like you don't want to just walk away from that situation. The passage recognizes that there comes a time when an unbelieving spouse may not want to live with a believer anymore. And that if that's the situation, if they take off, there's not a lot you can do about it. And so you're called to peace. And the idea there is that you're free at that point from the marriage. But before that point, you're to be a witness to them, you're to pray for them, you're to do your best to show them who Jesus is, and to do it in a way that's winsome, in the sense of, attractive. And so again, I understand the situation that you're in. I would not want to be there, but I could not see going to heaven without Bobby. And I would not walk away from a situation with her, even if she's in rebellion against God. I would not walk away from a situation with her without doing everything I could to make sure that she had every opportunity to know and to follow Jesus, because she's my wife and he's your husband. And so you need to be thinking about him in those kinds of terms. I understand that there can be a lot of other issues that go along with this whole situation. And it's really important that you try to look past all those things and realize that you're dealing with somebody who's fallen and who's messed up and who needs Jesus. And we all do. Even obviously even Christians. We need Jesus on a daily basis. And what I do in situations like that where it's hard for me is I pray and ask God to help me to love them like he does.
Yep.
I want to see them through his eyes, not through my eyes, because a lot of times I'm not seeing everything that's going on. But I want to see people through Jesus' eyes so that I can have the compassion that God calls me to. But you hang in there, you pray for them. It is really hard for a guy who has any kind of heart at all for the Lord to go against a wife who is godly and living a godly lifestyle and watching his back. It's really hard to go against him.
So don't give up.
Yeah.